It's fast, no waiting, easy to play. You can win it instantly. Available at all Lotto agents from Tuesday, November 21st.
Play for.
Here's your chance to win even more from the National Lotteries Authority when you play for 2 times daily. Choose 4 numbers from 0 to 9 and you can win up to $5,000 with a $1 inline bet.
Play for and back it up too. That's right. There'll be lots of cash waiting for you.
Get your tickets Monday to Saturday for the Play for Midday Draw at 1:50 p.m. and the Play for Night Draw 9 p.m. So easy to play.
For, you'll win even more.
Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Roundtable Talk. This evening we are having a cricket talk. Of course, our special guest is the President of Cricket West Indies, Dr. Keshav Shallow. Of course, you were here with me just as you were about getting ready to take up your new position as President of Cricket West Indies. That was in March, April?
Probably March. Time has certainly
yeah, so you're about 9 months on the job, and how is it going? What has transpired? How have you been doing?
Yeah, well, thanks for the invitation again, Teresa. Always a pleasure being in the studio on the round table. Last time I got some really positive feedback. I didn't realize how popular the show was, so I'm sure that it has grown even more since then. So I'm quite happy to be here. This has been a tremendous journey so far. Obviously, I was the vice president before to Ricky Skerritt from 2019 to 2023. And so it was a seamless transition, quite frankly. My vice president, Azim Bazarat, he has a wealth of experience as well. He has been the president of Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board for about 10 years now, and during that time he has also served as a West Indies director. So he too came into the job with a lot of experience, and with our other esteemed directors and management, we have been able to make some significant progress to date.
Okay, you mentioned the fact that the transition from vice president to president was seamless. How or what is the current state of West Indies cricket as of today, November 29th? What's the assessment?
Yeah, well, quite frankly, I mean, when you listen to some pundits and some fans and so on, you get the impression at times that we are in a bit of a quandary, right? A gloomy state of affairs.
Audrey?
Not at all. In fact, last Friday, I delivered a keynote address at the Queen's Park Cricket Club in Trinidad and Tobago. The club has the longest club sovereign club we have in the Caribbean, over about 132 years in existence. And what I did in my delivery then was, give insight of our history and where we have certainly traveled over the years. Now, I would be the first to admit that we haven't progressed as much as we ought to. We should have. But there's still, as I put it, a lot of successes taking place off the field that we don't often recognize. And maybe it is Cricket West Indies who doesn't communicate this as well as maybe the organization should. But certainly a lot has been taking place. There are quite a few positives. So currently, if you look at on the field, which we often judge, sorry, we have a team, South Africa, a team currently playing South Africa, a team. We have our emerging players playing currently Ireland in Antigua. We have our white ball team in camp for the last week or so, preparing to take on England in a series that starts on Sunday. And we have since we have emerging teams for women, we have increases in terms of remuneration for players and also increases for tournaments, prize monies. And so a lot of positive things are actually in West Indies cricket. There's absolutely no way you can say an organization is in quandary, but yet we have probably the highest paying employees in the entire region. During the pandemic, for example, and this is, tremendous work of management and the board, where during the pandemic, Cricket West Indies was one of the only organizations, maybe in the world, that didn't lay off one employee, right? However, the issue is, and not so much an issue because it is fair, that the organization is judged mainly based on the performance of the men's teams, right? Both the test team and the 50 overs and T20 teams. And over the last few years, there's no secret that the team has underperformed, right? Recently, we failed to qualify in the 50 overs World Cup. And that certainly is a failure on behalf of the organization, and surely fans have been very critical. But this hasn't happened overnight, and for someone like me who has been intimately involved in cricket administration over the years in the Caribbean, not only at West Indies level, it certainly hasn't shocked me that we are falling behind of other international teams. And this is not a case where our players have gotten worse, right? Or the organization has gotten worse. It's just that others have gotten much better than us, and organizations and players, right? Because over the years, they have put systems, infrastructure in place that are conducive to improvement of players. We haven't.
Why haven't
At least not to the extent that we are to have implemented these things. And why haven't we? It's a great question. So I've just finished reading, because I'm a student of cricket, so I read almost anything on cricket. Unfortunately, even some Facebook comments, right? Right. But on a serious note, I study cricket, so very recently, Sir Wes Harlew, I'm sure you're familiar with that name. Former great player, fast bowler, former West Indies president as well, West Indies Cricket Board as it was called, and in 2001 to 2003, when he was president, a reverend, and he has served in many capacities, a former minister in Barbados of tourism and sports. And Sir Wes wrote in his book, right, that in 2001 to 2003, when he served as president, the issues we had then were deficiencies in infrastructure, insularity, a weakness of the composition and structure of the board that is related, of course, to governance, and a few other areas that we currently see, coaching deficiency and so on. Fast forward 20 plus years, Teresa, those issues are still relevant, right? And that is unfortunate. But Sir Wes then, similar to Sir Frank Worrell, Laurie Constantine, and other great players and administrators of the past, have called on the people of the region, the stakeholders of the region, governments included, to address these issues. As a collective, we have not, right? And so the Cricket West Indies board and management, on their own almost at times, have attempted to address these issues. But the truth is, and I've said this from the first day of being in office, is that advancing West Indies cricket is not an effort or not an achievement could be made by an individual. It takes collective effort, shared responsibility, and really just a common goal and purpose by all of us in the region, because what cricket means to the region, is beyond measure, and that is the reality.
So the deficiencies that you have mentioned, is there any strategy that is in place specifically to address these issues? Yes,
currently we are developing our strategic plan, because that is where it starts. You have to have a strategy and a comprehensive plan. During my campaign in prior to March, I would have done a manifesto as well, which I expect to inform that strategic plan as well. And we are building on those 4 pillars that I put out in the manifesto, which are cricket development, and we spoke about them the last time, I will say as well, cricket development, human capital, commercial and marketing, and governance. And I'll just briefly, elaborate on each point. One, cricket development, that we have to invest in our players from the time they enter cricket until they retire, whenever that is. You have to invest in their development. So we have to have adequate facilities, we have to have coaches in place, and we have to have a pathway management for our players, right, male and female. For human capital, that deals with all our employees, our management, everyone, board and everyone. We have to assess, do an audit of all our personnel, all of our roles that exist in Cricket West Indies, and ensure we are operating at the level that we should in terms of efficiency. I really believe that we need to operate at a greater degree of efficacy in the organization, right? And we must ensure that everyone involved in West Indies cricket from a decision-making standpoint has a level of pride and passion for West Indies cricket. So it may start with an introduction to the history of West Indies cricket, appreciating where we come from, where this entire thing started. And it's so fascinating hearing these stories from Queen's Park Cricket Club, as one of the oldest organization and institutions we have in cricket from this part of the world. Also, commercial and marketing, we have to diversify our revenue streams. The organization is not sustainable as it is by relying only on when we host India and England in the Caribbean, because that's when we generate the most revenue, right, from our media and broadcast deals, right? We have to find other ways of generating. So when we host, let's say, a Bangladesh or a Sri Lanka, where we don't have thousands of fans following and where the broadcast deal isn't that lucrative, we must find ways to generate revenue that will help the organization to fund all the different programs that we have. And governance, any organization, I mean, you have to have the best practices in place, and in cricket is no different. We have to adapt and implement all those best practices in our industry. So if we could address those 4 pillars that I've been championing from since March thereabout and going forward, I have no doubt that we could be very successful as an organization not too long from now. In fact, in that same speech that I delivered on Friday last, I spoke about that light at the end of the tunnel that is very visible, but we just have to implement and practice the right things now.
Okay, we'll take our first break and come right back in just a moment.
Play for.
Here's your chance to win even more from the National Lotteries Authority. When you play 4 times daily, choose 4 numbers from 0 to 9, and you can win up to $5,000 with a $1 inline bet.
Makes 4 and back it's up to. That's right. There'll be lots of cash waiting for you.
Get your tickets Monday to Saturday for the Play 4 midday draw at 1:50 p.m. and the Play 4 night draw 9 p.m. So easy
Play
to play.
4, you'll win even more.
Thinking of winning the lotto jackpot? Well, there is an easy way. Combo Play. Choose 4 numbers from 1 to 36. That's a combo 4 at a cost of $64. Match any 4 of the 5 numbers and win the lotto jackpot. There's Combo 6, where you purchase 6 numbers for only $12. Match any 5 of the 6 lotto numbers and hit the jackpot. How about Combo 7? That's a purchase of 7 lotto numbers for $42. Match any 5 of the 7 numbers and you will win the jackpot. There are also Combo 3, Combo 8 and Combo 9 lotto plays. Visit the NLA headquarters in Pauls Avenue or WhatsApp 495-6886 for more details.
Welcome back. Let me ask you, how supportive is the rest of your team in terms of getting those things that you spoke earlier about before we took the break coming to fruition? How supportive is the team, and do they believe in the vision?
Well, if you're speaking of the board, right, that is clearly the group that elected me as president, and I was unopposed, so I assume that I have full support from the board. And that doesn't mean that there won't be differences from time to time, right, and that is quite healthy, and I am certainly the kind of leader that welcome and sort of invite that sort of atmosphere where my colleagues could challenge me, because that is how we all come up with the best solutions in the end. But there's certainly respect and the confidence there from the board, and the full support, I would say, in terms of us advancing West Indies cricket with the plan that I have established as a leader. And certainly that again has been informed by opinions from stakeholders, including these same board members. One of the activities in that same manifesto was to engage the stakeholders, because it is not only Cricket West Indies board in isolation, or the management as well. It is the entire region. I spoke about getting the governments involved, because I do think that they're a key stakeholder in us advancing cricket in the West Indies. And I have had discussions with a few leaders, regional leaders. In fact, at the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting held in Trinidad and Tobago, I think it was July 4th, I was given the opportunity to engage the leaders. And that too, I believe, was a fruitful discussion. And certainly there's great passion there, and I think that it is really quite timely being the president with sort of interest from these regional leaders. I can't say that there's not interest, great interest from these regional leaders currently, and they have expressed that, they have articulated their position, their concerns, and so on. They have also, offered ideas of how they could be involved directly in terms of helping West Indies cricket.
Next.
Right, and I think there's appreciation, and one of the outcomes from us not qualifying in that last World Cup, it was hurtful. It was a painful reality, not qualifying for the first time ever for the 50 overs World Cup, an event that we have won twice, right, in 79, 75 and 79. And we have won the Champions League as well. Currently, in fact, just earlier today I saw a graphic showing that after Australia is West Indies and India right there actually. We are right below Australia in terms of trophies for world events, because we have also won 2 T20 World Cups. And this is just for men. We have also won women and under 19. So we are a successful institution, but missing that World Cup was so painful that everyone sort of accepted the reality that we need to do more. And that includes the government, the heads of governments, where they have accepted that they must play a greater part, and they have shown that sort of intent and interest. With the World Cup next year as well, 2020, 2024 T20 Men's World Cup, it's obviously a tremendous opportunity for the entire region, and prime ministers and presidents, they have taken note of this. Hence, we have seen, some 7 countries in the Caribbean at least initiating discussions on interest to host matches, along with USA, of course. So with that level of potentially direct return, because listen, Teresa, I'm a frank person, straight shooter like yourself, right? And I have done an assessment of the situation in terms of the cricket development and why it has taken us so long, or why it has taken governments so much time to invest in cricket. The truth is, in the Caribbean, and we are very unique. West Indies is unique. We are separated by waters with several governments, all different. So this is not a New Zealand or England or Australia with one government. And we cannot ignore or discount the fact that with the limited resources by governments in the region and the need to be re-elected or the priority to be re-elected, that they are prioritizing resources accordingly. So if a West Indies team or when a West Indies team or teams do well, it doesn't quite translate to votes for governments. So it is not going to be a priority of a government to ensure that their limited resources are invested in cricket, right? Despite their passion for West Indies cricket, despite some of the leaders understanding the value of West Indies cricket to our own existence and civilizations as a region, right? It is just the reality, right? So, whereas there have been investment here and there in infrastructure, you know, the governments are being held to the fire with regards to healthcare and education and all these different things. And so,
sports.
And so sports like cricket, there might be there are investments locally, but in terms of West Indies cricket, right, you don't necessarily get the injection or the investment or the sort of I would say attention that is actually necessary to have us competing with the Indias and the England and the Australia. However, with the World Cup around the corner, where there may be a bit more direct returns for governments, then we have massive investments. And we are seeing governments now in a position where they could invest in this cricket because that could translate to votes. And I just being very practical and realistic here, right? And again, I'm not discounting the fact that the leaders are very passionate about cricket just like you and I. That is a reality. I know some of these leaders, they watch every ball that West Indies play, right? Every test match they play, they watch the games, right? But because of the limited resources available to them, they have been forced to invest elsewhere and not necessarily directly in West Indies cricket. So I say at this point, because of the World Cup next year, we have to capitalize on some of these investments from the governments, where they're going to be legacy projects and programs. So there will be investment at stake, for example, Haynes playing field, right? With light going to be installed at the Haynes playing field. We're going to have young cricketers being able to go down to Haynes on afternoons or evenings after the sun goes down, and they could be practicing down there. They could be playing. You know how many Vincentians have not played under light until they reach maybe international cricket or regional cricket? For the first time ever, after the lights are installed at Haynes, they'll be getting to play competitive cricket under lights. Right? And these things are very fundamental if we are going to compete with the rest of the world. You'll have facilities elsewhere in the region where, you know, we have several pitches, strips across the field where guys can go and practice on a daily basis. Now, these are the kind of infrastructure that we need to compete consistently on the international stage. And we have to capitalize. So I'm very optimistic with the World Cup around the corner, which is the planning and the implementation so far advancing pretty well. And the government's in a better position to invest in the World Cup and those legacy programs and projects that, you know, success that we all have been, you know, yearning for and hoping for, that they're not too far in the future for us.
What does the legacy project entail?
The legacy projects would be those capital projects that I just mentioned. So the investments in the grounds, the facilities, right? So you have lights, you have electronic screen, you have the pitches, you have the pavilions themselves, the players' pavilion and the pavilions for the spectators. You have playing and practicing facilities. So for example, in St. Vincent again, just to use this context since we are talking here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you have maybe the development of Haynesville 2 or Cumberland, which would be used for practice of team, because in addition to the teams playing the matches at Haynesville, they have to practice. They have to practice. So they have to practice in the nets, they may practice outside on Haynesville 2, and they may practice at Cumberland or any other facility, maybe even Sion Hill. So these are going to be developed as well. And after the World Cup, and Prime Minister Gonsalves, he has said it, that this investment is not only about 4 games, right? And that is what he was speaking about, the legacy projects, right? And the impact of this investment after the World Cup. Now, there are direct returns immediately because you have thousands of fans going to be coming into St. Vincent. You have all the teams, the camera crew, and hundreds of people directly linked to the cricket going to be in the country consuming different things from our service providers. So there are direct return in terms of funds going to be invested. Just to mention that the last World Cup we had in Australia, T20 World Cup, the budget for it was $100 million US dollars, right? And that is the kind of money investment going to be in the region. So there's definitely direct return. But what we benefit, what the advantages after the legacy projects for facilities and infrastructure development and so on, and then the programs we're talking about during that same time, we will be running simultaneously during the World Cup. We'll be running programs to do with grassroots cricket, exposing young players to these teams. When a team like whether it's England or Australia come to the Caribbean, getting them to impart the knowledge and give them exposure to our young players, or just having different programs run simultaneously. Those are quite beneficial as well.
Okay, when we come back, I have some questions and comments that our viewers have submitted. We'll talk some more about that when we come back from our second break.
Instacash, a new terminal game from the National Lotteries Authority. It's fast, easy to play. There's no waiting for a draw, and you can win instantly. Purchase your tickets from any Lotto terminal and win lots of cash prizes. There's the game Cash Stash, available at $2, and bingo tickets for $3, where you can win on the spot. Instacash, fast, easy to play, and you can win instantly.
Welcome back. You and I know that very much in the news at this present moment is the omission of Darren Bravo from the ODI squad. I know you don't like to talk about selection and all of that, but as the president, you know that there are going to be questions. Somebody is asking here, Mr. President, shallow. Has Darren Bravo made the most runs with Super 50? Is it because of his age why he wasn't picked? Do you have to be around an age range to be picked?
The direct question is no. There's no selection policy based on age. Age is not a criteria, so to speak. And what I recall the selector explaining, the lead selector explaining then was his panel's preference to give a couple younger players who they would have invested in an extended run at this point, and so Darren would have missed out based on that. That is my interpretation from what was said. But I could tell you from where I sit that Darren Bravo or any player for that matter who hasn't announced their retirement from international cricket, they continue to be considered for selection, including Darren Bravo.
Okay, so age is not.
It is not a criteria.
Okay, all right. Somebody was wanting to know if you answered the question relating to Bravo. So the selection panel works in tandem with the board?
The selection panel is an independent unit of the board, and they don't report even to the board. Actually, they report through via the director of cricket to the board, and the reason for that is, and this is consistent throughout the entire ecosystem for cricket. So even at the national levels, at the regional level, you don't have the selection panels reporting directly to the board, for the mere fact that you don't want interference of selection. You don't want that the cricket politics involved, or the insularity, or the favoritism, or whatever you want to call it, involved in the selection. So you keep the selection panels as independent as possible. However, they do have a selection policy developed, approved by the board. And what the premise is that if the selection panel is not performing, then the board has the authority to replace them, right? And that is it. But in terms of selections, and the very truth is, and this is one of the reasons why I'm very sensitive to a discussion on selection, is that if every single one of us in this studio were given 20 persons to select 11 from, I guarantee we are likely to come up with different 11s, right? One or two players going to be off, and quite often that's a selection. You have maybe Teresa thinking that, oh, Kishore should have been in, and I might say Fitz should have been in, you know, and whoever else, right? And that is just the reality, right? We don't agree to every selection, and so it is often quite sensitive and topical. But what I would say, if you have a selection policy, it guides the selection process, right? And again, from where I sit, I don't see the selection panel targeting victimizing anyone, right? Is a preference for a certain brand of cricket, and you know, deciding to give an extended run to certain players at this point. But the policy clearly doesn't speak to age. I expect, and our talent pool is just too small to even, you know, be eliminating players based on age, especially if they're performing well, right? So we want to encourage our players to play for a long time once they're fit, of course, to continue to play and performing. And then we pick the best players based on that. But I understand at times it is not as straightforward as we make it seem when it comes to selection. And again, it's not something we could all agree on. Most times than not, we're going to disagree on one or two players.
So the selection panel works with the policy developed by whom?
The board.
The board.
Yes.
Okay. So what is the relationship between the director of cricket, the selection panel, and the board?
The director of cricket reports to the board as well on cricket matters, right? There's obviously the CEO who he or she would report to. In this case, Miles Bascom, reports to the CEO, line to the CEO, line to the board. The selection panel reports to the director of cricket. So the director of cricket is ultimately the panel's boss, right? And you know, he is the one who would have those conversations with the panels or the lead selectors of both. We have a male and a female panel, and a junior panel as well. But the director of cricket he's the one who is responsible for having those conversations.
Okay.
And he's not a selector, by the way. He just facilitates discussion and ensure that the policies are followed, and so on.
Okay. Somebody's asking if Mr. Haynes does not, I imagine, fulfill his duties, will he be released from his position? It depends on who determines, or how it is determined that he is or is not performing, I imagine.
One of the core values, in fact, two of the core values I've been advocating under my leadership are excellence and accountability, right? Excellence in that we all have to aim to be at our very best. And even if sometimes we fall short, we must be able to justify that, but we must all aim for excellence. And this is not only for selectors, since you asked about selectors, but this has to do with board members, including myself, management, players, coaches, everyone in our system. I'm saying that we are to try our very best, right? And accountability, and I've said this, and I've done this even in Windward's Cricket when I was president there, that we have to hold each other accountable. And where we we accept and celebrate mediocrity is something that we cannot afford anymore, right? And too often in cricket, because we like somebody, we accept or celebrate those subpar performance. We might like Teresa, and Teresa could do anything, and we'll find an excuse for it. And this is not only in cricket. This is unfortunately how we operate in the region, right? And I'm quite consistent with business and cricket and my own life, right? Where I strive for excellence, and I hold myself and people around me accountable. And it's the same thing that happens under my leadership. So anyone who underperforms based on their job description, their responsibility, then they're going to at least know that they have underperformed. And if I think it is at a stage where they can no longer add any value to the organization, then you can be guaranteed that we're going to move on from them. And it has happened in a couple of cases so far. We have done some new recruitments. We have some new staff on board, right, where we have had some replacement. We thought that we reached to the end of the road with some people and we need more from certain roles. And we have done just that. So this is not unique to any individual. It is just, me being very consistent with my leadership in,
Somebody is asking or saying, we would appreciate an expose on what is being done to promote greater and more timely dissemination of information on important, relevant matters. There have been many calls for such.
I would say that communication is something work in progress, but we have made some strides. We have made some good progress. We have recruited a communication consultant over the last few months, and he has been doing an exceptional job. In fact, at one time, people been accusing us of bombarding them with press releases, right? Because we're just getting information out there. We have had press conferences, and it is very important. We have to do more, communicate, because there's a lot of good things happening in the cricket as well that we don't communicate well enough. And bear in mind, sometimes it is not so much that we're not communicating, but we probably focus on one platform, which is social media, right? As opposed to ensuring that the traditional media, the press and so on, given the content as well. So all these things we have to consider, right? But it's certainly work in progress. I think we could do a lot more in that area, and we are quite committed to doing that and improving in that regard.
Okay, we'll take a final break and be back in a moment.
Instacash, a new terminal game from the National Lotteries Authority. It's fast, easy to play. There's no waiting for a draw, and you can win instantly. Purchase your tickets from any lotto terminal and win lots of cash prizes. There's the game Cash Stash, available at $2, and bingo tickets for $3, where you can win on the spot. Instacash, fast, easy to play, and you can win instantly.
Welcome back. One of the things that I have heard some say in my following up and so with the game is that we have been having an overemphasis on T20 specialization. Do you agree with that?
No, I totally disagree. I think there's certainly room for all formats. But again, it's giving consumers what they want, right? We are in a very commercial space right now, and this is not, again, unique to cricket, but the world is so commercial that, T20 is very attractive, not only for, our players really in terms of what they earn, but it's what the fans want. And it's mainly because of the time. It is so easy to consume T20 cricket. In 3 hours, you could, attend a game, watch a chiller, climax, and then you get to go back to your life, right? And you can't do that with Test cricket, unfortunately. You can't do it with 50 overs. This is all day. And to get into other markets, like for example the US market, right, which we are hosting the World Cup event next year, if it was a 50 overs matches, there would have been no appetite for cricket there. T20 has afforded us that opportunity because it's fast-paced. And so what we have to do is use this format, T20 format, which is the most attractive format for whether it's young boys and girls or families, people who are not traditionally cricket fans, right? Use T20 to attract these people to the game and then ensure that we make the 50 overs and Test cricket just as attractive, almost as attractive, so that we could get those fans transferred to those formats as well. I think that the fact that cricket maybe is probably the only sport with 3 different formats that is special, that is unique. But we have to ensure that we package all and ensure that they all reach different, whoever the favorite fans are, the people, because they are still purists. And the purists I consider to be like those who fall in Test cricket. My grandfather, he's a purist. He prefers Test cricket. And even there are some young people who love to watch Test cricket still. And so we can't afford to lose that. But what we have to do again is strike a balance. And ICC has to take the leadership of that. That's the International Cricket Council. They have to take leadership of that. I'm a director in ICC as by virtue of being president of Cricket West Indies, and I've just came back from a meeting in India where that has been a focus. How do we ensure that all 3 formats are relevant for our consumers? So it is a discussion that has taken place, and we have to try our very best to ensure that they all survive.
So we probably need to target 3 different types of consumers these days. Of
course. It's similar to business. You have different products. You have to understand them, understand, the dynamics and why people gravitate to each, and package them accordingly.
Okay. Well, we know that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is going to be one of the venues for cricket next year. What goes into the process of selection as a venue for these games?
It was a bidding process where governments they were asked to confirm their interests, and then once they confirmed their interests, they made the suggestions that they could meet the commitments, the requests. They would have been allocated matches accordingly. There are some financial obligations as well, meaning they would have had to make some investments for the games. There were different price tag to the packages, and so they were awarded games based on their bids. So just to put that into context for you, a group match, which is a preliminary match, that's a different price tag than, let's say, a Super 8 or a semi-final or a finals package, right? And so governments across the region and in the USA as well would have made bids based on what they want, what they think is best for the country, and based on their own dynamics, the accommodation they have, the infrastructure they have in terms of playing facilities and so on, and different factors. And the games were allocated. Currently, Cricket West Indies and ICC, we are finalizing the match schedules. I expect pretty soon, over the next, I hope no more than 2 weeks, or maybe before Christmas, we are going to release the entire match schedules and have tickets out on sale, because we have people dying to purchase the tickets to decide which of the Caribbean islands are, which ones they are going to, including the playoff matches and in the finals. I know quite a few people have expressed that they want to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Even nationals who have been away for a very long time have said to me that, and others, that they're booking their vacation to come home to witness. And this is the kind of excitement that I have seen and heard from people across the world, not only in the Caribbean. And it's just, some people, love cricket, and just the opportunity to come and see cricket at home, right? For them is a massive, massive, you know, part of, you know, it's just a massive achievement for them to have World Cup matches in St. Vincent and Grenadines. And similar sentiments are expressed for people across the region as well. And so there's excitement from fans, from governments, from government officials, players, you know, ICC and our counterparts. I spoke to a few of my colleagues from ICC as well, and they too are looking forward to coming to the Caribbean and witness this spectacular event in the region next year. So, I mean, Caribbean is a fantastic place to come, and that's the reality. And then to have another opportunity in addition to the beaches as well, another reason to come to the Caribbean, that is certainly accepted and welcomed by many. So I do look forward to a spectacular event next year, Teresa. Plans, like I said, have been going along pretty well. Implementation, we are accelerating in terms of the implementation. Pretty soon we're going to have a marketing campaign launch as well, soon as the match schedule is finalized. But as of January 4th, we are going to be feeling, you know, that World Cup atmosphere. Okay,
somebody is already jumping ahead of themselves. What is SPG's chance of hosting a West Indies game in the next World Cup? I think you answered that in a way already when you talk about the process.
Yeah, and just to say there's I mean, if they ask about West Indies games, there are 20 teams in the competition, in the World Cup. They're going to be in 4 groups, so 5 teams per group. And the match schedule, once it's finalized, will obviously give information in terms of which teams are going to be based where. But St. Vincent is likely to host Super 8 games as well. So even though some teams are not in the preliminary stage in St. Vincent, there's a huge possibility that they could actually be playing here as well in the Super 8. So you probably have to wait, because for the Super 8 there's a qualifying process as well in terms of the top 2 teams from each group. I think the top 2 teams go to the Super 8, and then those games are allocated accordingly as well. So there's a big possibility that we'll get to see, who knows, whether it's West Indies or England or whoever in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
It doesn't have to be West Indies, and may not be West Indies, but it would still be a World Cup game. Yeah?
Our matches, yeah. The matches are all official matches and not warm-up matches.
Okay. The United States has become interesting and important, it seems, venue within recent times for cricket. How is that impacting cricket in the region in terms of venues and others that are here in the region?
Well,
is it taken away? Is it adding?
The U.S. market for us is critical from a commercial standpoint, in that because of our geographic location with them and the time zone. So our region is small, population-wise. We won't be able to attract on our own the same type of media broadcast deal as India, because India has over 1 billion people. We have, you know, just a few million, right, in the region. However, if we could extend that to USA market, then that obviously is significant. Is a significant increase. And so our intention is to expand our market to the USA, so that when we are negotiating our broadcast deals going forward, we have a higher viewership prospect, right? So as opposed to maybe 10 million or so across the region, and just if you go to probably Bermuda and these places nearby, you include all of those. But then we're talking another, you know, 100+ million from cricket followers in the USA that we could tap into. And then the junior level and the 19 level. But if we could have this by helping USA cricket to improve, then we could have a competitive USA cricket team. USA is actually going to be in the World Cup next year as well. And same for Canada. Then right in this part of the world, this region, we could actually have a significant TV audience. And that is significant, critical for our revenue stream. And all we talk about our revenue stream needs to increase. That is what we're talking about. So for us, it is that outweighs any disadvantage with regards to sharing fixtures, sharing matches with USA. And over the years, we have last at least 4-6 years, we have had at least 2 matches in high-profile series. India especially, because they have a lot of Indians who cricket lovers in the USA. So we play India there just like we did in August this year in Fort Lauderdale. And this is something we have done over the years, and we'll continue to do because, again, of the commercial value in it to ensure that those cricket lovers in USA, get to watch cricket on our time zone.
Do you think the many hundreds and thousands of West Indians who live in these locations would say, well, I come in Jamaica and I come in St. Vincent, I can just go to Texas or Fort Lauderdale? Do you see that kind of impact at all?
Caribbean is unique. Caribbean is special. Caribbean is I've heard it from people, right? I've heard it, and Teresa, you're someone who's well traveled as well. I'm sure you noticed that a colleague of mine, at ICC level, he said, listen, I want to come to the Caribbean. I will go to USA, yes, and watch a few matches, but I want to come to the Caribbean because they're not the same. Right, and that is the sentiments, those are the sentiments of her generally around that we want to experience cricket in the Caribbean. And let me say that, unlike 2007, where we know that there were quite a few restrictions, at least in the early stages of the tournament, with regards to what you can do, and it's sort of devoid the flavor and the color of cricket in the region, in the West Indies. Next year would be totally different. Next year is going to be about West Indies cricket, right? And our atmosphere. And from the fun experience personnel we have on board, our marketing people, ICC, they understand that, because it's something that I've reiterated to them, that this experience is what people come into the region for, and this is what we're going to offer. So it is a unique opportunity for us to showcase West Indies and everything West Indianness, if you want to put it that way. But that is what we're selling, and that experience cannot be had whether it's in Florida, New York, Texas, or wherever in the USA.
Well, I think that's a perfect note on which to end this evening's edition of Roundtable Talk. Our special guest, the President of Cricket West Indies, Dr. Kishore Shallow. Wishing you all the best as usual. It's going to be all right.
I have absolutely no doubt. A pleasure being here, Teresa.
Okay,
thanks again.
Thank you as usual. Join us again next week, Wednesday, when we will have another edition of Roundtable Talk for you. Have a pleasant Wednesday evening.
Instacash is a portfolio of games offering players the chance to win prizes without waiting for a draw. Simply put, it's fast. Instacash games print on demand from any lottery terminal and cannot be cancelled. These games are easy to play and offer the chance to win instantly. Everything you need to play is on each ticket. Instructions and prizes appear right on the ticket. All tickets will have the following information: Instacash logo, game logo and price point, the seller's name and the retailer number, the time and date that the ticket was sold, top prize and how to play the game, the game play area, price of the ticket, name of the game and the ticket serial number. All players are responsible for checking that the ticket is properly printed in every way. Instacash comes in a variety of games and price points from as low as $2, all available to the player at any given time. Each game has its own prize structure and rules clearly displayed on the ticket. Playstyles range from familiar quick wins such as key number match, symbols match and beat the dealer. Winnings can be multiplied up to 20 times with a top prize as high as $10,000. Instacash, fast, easy to play, and you can win instantly.